Alright guys, hello and welcome. Earlier today we worked on the forest generation for Shimmerpool, and I've got a little bit more time before I have to step away. Tonight is Civ 6 night. We do it once every 2 weeks, so I definitely don't want to be late to that. It's only 2 hours. So I will have to leave in a few hours, but I figured this is enough time for us to work on the mountains. The mountain peaks. It was a big part of Karga. We should have some pretty gorgeous mountains that this lake is surrounded by. So we'll go ahead and set that up today. We worked on this forest, and we got it pretty much how we wanted it. Generally thicker as you get closer to the water, but as you move further away, there are fewer and fewer pine trees and more bushes, sort of to look natural in the way that pine trees need better access to water, so therefore they grow closer to the lake. So next step is to do these mountains. Now there are several mountains in... I remember actually it was quite tricky doing the mountains on Karga initially, but we've only improved our software since then for doing these sorts of things. Let's take a look at Gaia Mountains here, and let's take a look at this. We've got several different types of mountain. We've got, where do we go? So we've got Mountain 1. Okay, we've got Mountain 2. We have Mountain 3. We have Mountain 4. Mountain 5. Mountain 6. Mountain 7. And Mountain 8. So in this particular biome, we will obviously use the 3 stone mountains, or snowy mountains, sorry. We're not going to use these desert mountains here. There's not really much of a reason to do that. So this will all come out of the definitions. We'll simply define the kinds of mountains that we want. We want to try to include as many different mountain shapes as possible. So it looks like we have 3 of the non-snowy, 3 of the snowy, and then 2 of the desert mountains. It's unfortunate that we don't have 3 desert mountains. I think that would make things a lot more convenient. So these mountains are going to be located up here on this ridge, and probably each ridge is going to have about 2 mountains, and it's going to have appropriate rocks surrounding those mountains. It's unfortunate that we can't really do snowy rocks. There aren't a lot of snowy rock objects in Age of Empires, unfortunately. And they don't really make it easy to mod that stuff in. Wouldn't it be cool if the script file could have associated additional objects with it? Oh, that would open up so many possibilities. Like if you could load the objects from Zoo Tycoon in or something like that. There were all sorts of snowy rocks for that. So right now we can't put the mountains up here because this terrain is unbuildable. We can put them on this terrain here, but the terrain at the very peak is unbuildable by design. Okay, so let's see what we got here for the code. We take a look at Advanced Genie Editor before we bring up the code, actually. And we see the designations of all of these mountains. Mountain 1, Mountain 2, Mountain 3, Mountain 4, Mountain 5, Mountain 6, 7, 8, and then apparently we have Snow Mountain 1, 2, and 3. So let's just take a look at this. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then 1, 2, and 3. So apparently we've got, oh wait, we've got snow mountains down here. Wait, where? Where are the snow mountains? Aha! We've got even more snowy mountains, you guys. This is excellent. Okay, good. So we got 3 of those. We got 3 of the snow-capped mountains. Okay, alright. So this makes more sense. So I was forgetting some mountains. Glad that we were able to use the Advanced Genie Editor to find them. I think these mountains would look pretty good over here, although I don't know if it would be really appropriate given that we've got sand down here. Don't really seem to have a good mask over the desert. Maybe that's something that we can experiment with, although it looks like we're already masking some DLC desert gravel in here. So maybe we try to do that first with terrains. We just, let's come over here. See if we can get as much snow on these ridges as possible. So where are we? The mountain terrains. Mountain transition to base terrain. That's 102. And then we've got the peak masking, the shelf masking, and the mountain overlook. So we basically want to go in wherever we mountain peak masking into this mountain terrain. Copy that. And where in the terrain generation are we doing the mountains? Here we go. So we're going to add some more stuff and see if this makes a difference. I'm hoping that it does. So we are going to just have a general purpose, general mountain masking, just to clean up at the end. So what do we got here? MPMT, and that is somewhere else. That's right there. So this is occurring on the mountain overlook. We're going to have it occur on the mountain shelf, I think. We're already masking the shelf terrain for the mountains. Mountain shelf masking terrain. What is that? Oh, that's the same thing. Land %1. So maybe we just do this to the base terrain and see if this helps. And we remove all height limits here at this point. Actually, we want it above a certain height because this is occurring before our other stuff. So we want it elevation 4 and above, I think. Height limits 4 to 8. Yes. Is that doing anything? It's hard to say. If this is elevation 1, then this is elevation 2, and this is elevation 3, so elevation 4 should indeed be above that. So that's what it has to be. Now let's take a look. MTTT, mountain transition mountain to base terrain. So we should do this again to MTTT. And we'll cover up that DLC desert gravel as well. Yes, that looks much nicer. That looks much better. And I think we can abide this. You don't have to have snow everywhere because you could argue that the incline makes it difficult for snow to settle. But I think that this is good. And we might have to revisit that later in the case of other biomes. complicating it. It's somewhat unfortunate how this is so distinct, but we just don't have enough good terrains, I think. We can't really merge them much better than that. Can't blend them much more efficiently. Okay. So now that we've tweaked that a little bit to make it fit our snowy mountain some more, let's take a look at what we have for the mountain. So in this section, we're essentially setting the size of these mountains to 1. We're setting the radius in both directions equal to 1. And the reason that we are doing that is because these mountains are inherently large, and when we place them and we place other objects nearby, if the mountains are too large, or if the mountains are allowed to inhabit their native size, then other rocky objects that we might want to place closely to these mountains, other such objects would not really be allowed to spawn. So at least they wouldn't be close to it, and it would look funky. It wouldn't really look like everything was together. So we are changing this radius to 1 here. But instead of attacking DLC Mountain 6 and all of that, what we're going to do is we're going to use the same trick that we used with the trees, and we're going to say Mountain 1. We're going to do the same thing. Mountain 1. Now, keep in mind that these have 2 different radiuses, one in the X and one in the Y direction. So that's why you see 1 and 2. And now we're going to do Mountain 2. And we'll copy this, and we can predefine this. And Mountain 3. Okay. So we will define these mountains later. Actually, we don't necessarily need this inside of this logical. We can have this later, somewhere down here. It doesn't matter. Doesn't need to be inside of a conditional is what I mean. And we're going to say mountain definitions. Okay. And we're going to do constant mountain 1, and we're going to do constant mountain 2, and then we're going to do constant mountain 3. And how do we know what these are? Well, we decide what they are, and we decide them based on this list. We want snow mountains 1, 2, and 3. So 1045, 1046, and 1047. Okay, so that's all set up. Now we can put these mountains in our objects generation. And to get that, we got to go back to GNU Octave, and we'll open up our handy-dandy Excel file. And these are not a resource-bearing object, so I'm not going to color code them. But you guys get the idea. We'll put them down here. 18, 19, and 20. And now remember, guys, how these mountains, we could not spawn them on top because the terrain on top is not buildable. So we can use our traditional sneaky methods, and we can just implement second object. And we can force the mountain to spawn on that terrain, even though it wouldn't ordinarily. I like how the mountain has 20 hit points too, that's funny. Okay, so it's similar to what we did for a lot of these trees, where we forbade the trees from being able to spawn on certain forest terrain. and then we went back in and put them on there anyway later. But we just cleared that forest terrain so that we could get the trees to have a central, like a lakeside bias. Okay, so let's come back in here. So we are going to put down mountain 1, mountain 2, mountain 1, mountain 2, mountain 3, but they can't be first objects, they must be second objects. And we can delete these. And we can just say on grid for that. We have something figured out for on grid, so that's fine. Let's copy some information from above to fill this in. We want to make sure that we provide the map enough of these objects to cover everything. And we're going to control the amount with their spacing. So let's copy this. In theory, we could directly specify the positions of these objects because we know that the corners will always have them. It's not going to be somewhere else, and they're kind of neutral objects, and they don't really have any resources inherent to them, so none of that really matters. But we don't need to do that. We're not going to do that. We're going to set these mountains to be convertible because they cannot be converted even if you wanted to convert them, so there's no reason to add the extra command. The terrain to place on is going to be the mountain peak terrain. Let's see how we've defined it. Mountain terrains, mountain overlook, MTOL, I believe. That's 40, that's the DLC rock. That looks correct. Come over here and check 40. That should be DLC rock on the top. Yep. So it's MTOL. That is the terrain that we want to place these mountains on. These mountains are going to have a temporary min-distance group placement of 12. We'll see how that goes. We are also going to tell these mountains to avoid each other by similar distances, probably 8 in this case. So we'll copy some lines of code here. Copy that. And we'll get rid of the color. Don't want that. That will be confusing. So this one doesn't need anything. So we'll paste it down there. At least it doesn't need anything for now. We'll probably add more stuff later. This is going to be A22. So it's going to avoid whatever's in 18. And we will have it make that avoidance by 8. And now we will copy this and paste it here. We'll have it avoid whatever is in 18 and A19. No, that is not right. 23 and 24 is what we need. No, 22 and 23. Okay, so it'll avoid both of those by 8 tiles. It's MTOL. Now I have a feeling that this is not going to work the greatest, but we will see. We'll check it out. Okay. So save. And then we should be able to run it. The reason that I am skeptical that this will work great, I think we're going to have to find a way of positioning the mountains in or out. Right now we have them, and they could spawn anywhere in this space. They could spawn too close to this area, and they could spawn too close to this area out here. We want them to be kind of in the center point, in the middle of this thick line, if you will. And the best way to achieve that would be to put invisible placeholders along this ridge, or this specific terrain that we know is right here, and then tell the mountains to avoid and be placed within a certain radius of those placeholders. But we will see. It's done. Let's have it run and see what it comes up with. Yep, as predicted, the mountains are spilling over. There's not much control. See how this one is basically almost practically right on top of this. Now, they do have the correct radius. Like if we wanted a unit to come in here, this bear wanted to climb up the mountain, he can, he can climb up part of the mountain here. And he can sort of go behind it too. Although the mountain has this occlusion mode. That's handy. So you can sort of see the outline of the bear behind the mountain. Okay, we're not going to put bears up here. We're probably going to put snow leopards. But you guys get the idea. The controls on the mountain are not sufficient to guarantee that they spawn in the correct location. And the mountains themselves might be a little bit close together. We'll see. But the first thing that we need to do is we need to assure that the mountains spawn in the line that we're looking for. It's a little chilly Amazon warrior. There we go, standing up there. So, we will introduce another placeholder. Insert rows above, clear these out, and copy this basic information. Paste that here. This is going to be an on-grid placeholder, and its whole thing, and we want these, actually I think the placeholders, we don't want them convertible, if I'm remembering correctly. Because this was set up as though it were the tree, but we will change this to unconvertible. Unconvertible, unconvertible, unconvertible. We'll copy that, paste that, and then we'll copy that, and then we'll paste that there. There we go. Okay, yeah, I think those should be unconvertible. Just because they're dead fish traps, and if they spawn right next to the player, well, we'll test it, but I'm going to leave them as unconvertible now, just to be safe. So here we are. They must be unconvertible, all of them, unconvertibles. So we need, this is basically going to be following the terrain here. Let's go in and take a look at whatever terrain is creating that, actually that's going to be up here. Mountain terrain, it's the transition mountain to base terrain. That's what we want. It's 102. And we must always have a transition terrain of some kind. So it's going to be placed on MTTT. And we're going to give that a temp min distance group placement of 1. And there we go. Okay, so now this is 18, 19, 20, 21. And these mountains are going to be placed within a certain distance of that placeholder. And let's just do one more thing. Hey, Cookie Pirate, welcome. Let's do one more thing. Let us just get prepared for what's going to happen here when we change this to a large map size. This is going to be thicker, I think, based on how it's made. Yes, it's a little. I think it's a little bit thicker. Same problem. Mountain spawning like at the very edge. So we're going to tell these mountains to avoid these placeholders, which are going to appear. They are going to be on this DLC Desert Gravel. So we're going to tell the mountains to avoid them and be placed within them by a certain distance. So we will copy this. This first mountain is going to need to be placed within, and then avoid. And it'll be placed within 22, and we'll place it within. Within 8 seems fine. We might want to pull that in a little bit, actually. Let's maybe make it 7. And we will have it avoid whatever's in 18, which are these placeholders. We'll have it avoid by 5. So same concept here. These mountains and these mountains must also obey this. I think active area to place in was upgraded or improved recently, so I've been using it more. It is nice. And we are also going to have this information also appear in this down here. So it's A22. So we're going to want A22. A22. We're going to F4 that. And then we need to put a 5 in front of this 8 to sequence it properly. So again, A22. And then we're going to put a 5 in front of this 8. And then a comma, and then we need to put another 8 here so that it knows what to do. So it will avoid these placeholders. All 3 of these will avoid the placeholders by 5. It'll be placed within 7, and they will also avoid each other by 8. Okay. And I don't think we have to do anything with the scaling, but if we do, then we do, and it's an option, so we can deal with that. So save, come up here, run. Okay, writing to file. So it's figured it out. It ran, didn't compile, or it did compile, no errors. So now we're going to check to see if these mountains are a little bit better centered on this ridge. So we're going to keep this seed, and we'll hit generate. Yeah, I would call that an improvement. That is definitely an improvement. We actually might tighten the tolerances a little bit. It looks like they may have a slight bias toward the inside portion. Yeah, they got a slight bias toward the inside, but it's the right idea. Just need to adjust the distances a bit. But this is good. This is very, very good. I was worried they might not appear. But actor area to place in was improved recently. Or I just got smarter about its limitations, one of the two, and so I trust it more. So we need to place within, let's bump this down to 5, 5, 5, 5, and we'll do, oh, hold on. Let's not be too hasty here. This is the large map size. Let's check tiny. Okay, so tiny needs it too. Tiny needs that distance to also decrease. Okay, so that's fine. So we'll decrease this to 5, and we'll actually change this to 4. So we'll tighten the tolerance on it, make the window a little bit narrower within which it can do its thing. All right. Okay, looks pretty good. That actually looks really good. I think we nailed that. Yeah. Yeah. I don't like this overhang so much. Maybe we pull them out a little bit more so that that can't happen. Pull them toward this. Because there's more room out here than there is in here. And we'll also decrease the distances, maybe, between these mountains, so they can be a little bit closer together. You're going to start a new map tonight. Really? What about all of your other projects that are in queue? So we'll try doing 4 and no, not 32, but 3. Well, just be careful that you don't have too many irons in the fire. It's a good way to get burned? No, I don't think that's the expression. It's a good way to burn. It's a good way to burn your food or whatever. And we were going to decrease this a little bit. Maybe make this 8, 8, and 8. So space 8 from themselves. Yeah, I like that. Oh, what is this? We don't want 4 there. We want 6. Wait a second. What's going on here? I don't want anything there. The vector lengths must be the same. I know, we say that, oh, you know, it'll be easy, but then it is not easy. All right. Pull them out a little bit. Yeah, I think that's better. Yep, it's good. Spacing is better. So now we need to give these some invisible placeholders that are essentially assuring a path around them. So they look weird when they go over the map edge. Well, there's not much I can do about that, except specify distance to map edge. But that feature actually isn't built into my object program because the object program was made before that parameter was an option, and I have not updated it yet to include that parameter because generally I have... Actually, what am I talking about? I don't need that. I technically could... Yeah, I could get them to avoid the edge without that parameter, but I don't want to. It's not worth the effort. Alright, so what was I... Oh, yes. So I was going to introduce some invisible objects kind of around these. I think I was going to actually just place some more of these placeholders to avoid them. So let's do that. You guys will see my plans. Would placing only 2 of them help or no? I want the mountains to be dense. I want people to feel like they've broken over a big old mountain ridge just as they're entering the valley. Mountain 1, Mountain 2, Mountain 3. And to be clear, we should have all 3 of the mountains represented. 1, 2, 1, 2, and yeah, here's another one. Yeah, we have Mountain 3 represented here as well. It's rare, but it looks like this. There he is right there. Well, to get Mountain 3 to be more likely to show up, we would have to boost this a little bit. Okay. So we're going to create exclusion zones, if you will. 3 of these on-grid placeholders. We could call them flag A, flag B, and flag C for now. And their whole thing is they are going to be placed within and avoid the mountains by a certain distance. They're not going to be placed on any particular type of terrain. Although if we did that, we would have to essentially double the number of them that we would need. Because we have, at least double, because we have several different types of terrains all around there. They're not going to be placed on a particular type of terrain. They are not going to have a temp min distance group placement. But for the purposes of not having them overlap, we will have them respect each other. So flag A is going to associate with mountain 1. So mountain 1 is here. And this is the next one, mountain 2. And this one goes with mountain 3. So we want to adjust this. Mountain 1 and mountain 2 and mountain 3. However, we obviously can't have 19 here, so we're going to pull this down. Whoops, no, this one is going to avoid flag A. Yeah, that's good. Flag A and flag B. And we want that avoidance to be 0, which is all that we need in order to assure that it is not overlapping. So now the question is, what is the radius for this? And I think 3 to 4 is a good starting point for now. So we'll save that, and we'll see if we can get these flags to show up. Okay. So this looks pretty good. Interestingly, these flags, flag C, seem to be avoiding these other flags. And we're having them avoid the mountains by too much, I think. Oh, I think that's an error. Let's see. Yeah, this one should be relative to mountain 3, I think. Hold on. $19, $20, $21. So we need 25 to be here. And then we need 26 and 27 to be here. Okay. Yeah, that's better. So we'll run that update. Oops. No. Okay, yes, so let's run this update. Okay, so we have these boxes around each mountain, around the origin of each mountain. And I think these boxes are essentially going to represent the pathway that you could take through each corner. You can see that there is a pathway. Although we might put additional flags down. So we can put whatever we want inside of these flags or outside of these flags on this terrain type. As long as it does not overlap the flags. And of course, when we're all done and when everything looks proper, we'll change the flags to an invisible placeholder so that the players themselves don't see them as they're exiting. But the flags are here to guarantee a path out because we don't want to clutter a bunch of rocks and other things in here that prevents players from being able to pass into these corners. Because regardless of whether or not it's a nomad start or a standard start like the one we have here, players are going to need to be able to get in here because this is where the stone is located on the map. So let's go in and add the objects. The objects will not have to respect the mountains. They don't have to respect the mountains. They essentially just have to respect the flags. So that should be pretty fun. So let's think about what kind of objects we want up here and how many of them we want. I'm thinking it could be fun to have some trees up here, although I'm not sure exactly how many we would have and whether or not they'd even be interactable. So for instance, we can't put trees on the DLC rock terrain. They have similar terrain restrictions as these mountains do. But we can always include them as second objects. So I suppose we just start going wild and adding some things here. Yeah, this is not going to be terribly ordered. Again, the only requirement is that all of these objects that we add just avoid these flags by 0, because these flags are the passageway through. And we don't want players to be able to wall other players in. All right. So, let's go back in here. Something that we could actually do, I'm thinking about it, to make it look even more organic and random, is we could increase the thickness of this essentially this flag wall to 2 tiles, and then we could have these objects kind of spawn on the pathway to make it look more organic in nature. I think that that's actually the right thing to do. That's the so-called play. We'll make at the very least, having a passageway that's 2 tiles thick could be a lot easier for players to see and understand what's going on, which is important. So come in here, and we're not going to increase the maximum. I think that that's good, but we are going to decrease the minimum. All right, 2, 0, and 0. Save it. And now, let's keep adding stuff. Mountain mountain eye candy maybe, or maybe ridge eye candy, ridge EC. We're gonna call them ridge eye candy 1 through whatever else, right? So these need to be cheap. We need to mass produce them. We need to not really care too much about exactly their details. Let's comment that, copy that, paste that here. The number of them will scale to map size. All this other stuff is the same. The difference is that these will have different temp min distance group placements, and they will avoid the flags, but they won't really avoid each other. So we will copy this here. This has 3 avoidances. Oh, actually, we don't have to copy it. That's in the exactly right spot already because we already copied it. All right. So we will have, they're going to avoid, let's just slide all these down. There we go. They're going to avoid all of them by 0. And actually, each one is going to have 2 different terrains that it's placed on. Because these ones we do want to limit by the terrains, otherwise they're going to spill into the base area, and they're going to spill into the mountain bridge, and we don't want that. So we've got 6 different eye candies right now, and we'll keep it that way. However, we have to renumber them. Insert rows above, insert rows above, insert rows above. Oops. Insert rows above, insert rows above. Okay. So this one is going to be basically everything. It's all going to be the same. We'll copy this all down. The difference is that these eye candies are going to be placed on different terrains. And let's just count and double check and see how many terrains we have for this mountain. We have, hey, Waffle King, welcome. We have the mountain shelf, cornermost. Okay. Yeah, we want to include this terrain. We want to include the overlook, and we want to include the transition. So really, it's only 3. So each one needs 3. We don't need to worry about the masking. So we will add another row to each of these. We can't do it that way. Too bad. Insert rows below. Insert rows below. Insert rows below. Insert rows below. Some more rows. Okay. And now we will make sure that it understands this logic and drag it down. We can do up to, so far we can do up to 6 different ridge eye candy objects. So now we're going to take all of this. Actually, we don't want the, well, we do want the name. We want the name for the first 3 anyway, same name. And we'll paste that there. And then we will copy all of that and paste that there. And we'll copy this. Paste that. Paste that. We're going to have to update some names, but it's fine. So EC1, EC2. Actually, we should probably get the terrains in place, shouldn't we? Oh, this is missing that. Ah, whatever. All right, let's just delete these. Let's delete them before I get confused. Insert rows above. So we'll just do the first two eye candy objects just for a proof of concept here to make sure that it's going to work. So the terrains need to go in here. So let's do MTSH, MTOL, MTSH, MTOL, and then MTTT. We need to copy this. Okay. So we've got two objects that we're doing. Very important, min distance group placement for each of them is, let's say that we're going to set that equal to 4 for now. But this number will grow as we increase the number of these ridge eye candy objects. Oh, we want temp min distance group placement. Very, very, very important. Very different. This property is extremely powerful. You do not want to mess with this thing. It will make it impossible to spawn stuff very quickly. Okay, and they've got, we can simplify this to 0 because they are simply, they cannot be placed on top of the flags that we put. Otherwise, as long as they're on that terrain, they will be placed anywhere along that ridge. MTSH, MTOL, and MTTT. Okay, let's run that. And then we also have to define these eye candy objects as well. And so we're going to just we'll do the rocks for now, rock 1 and rock 2. That's going to be pretty universal, I think. There's not really going to be a map we make where we don't want rock 1 and rock 2 up there. They're staples. Okay. It's done. So we can't generate this yet because we haven't defined those eye candy objects. So we will actually open up our spreadsheet again. We're not going to change anything right now, but we're going to open it up, and then we're just going to look up these names just to remind myself of what we called them. And now we'll come over here to the script and we will define these. We're going to say that like the ridge object. We're going to call it ridge object definitions. And constant, we're going to do ridge eye candy 1, and then we're going to do constant ridge eye candy 2. And those are what we need to define for now. Remember, each of these objects are placed on 3 different types of terrain. And now we need to find the numbers that are associated with them. So to do that, we come over here to Advanced Genie Editor and we type in rock. And we have rock 1 is 623 and rock 2 is 1323. There are 2 rock 2s, but you don't want to use the ones in the 900 range. So 623 for rock 1. So 623 and 1323. How convenient that they both end in 23. All right, save it. Now we can generate. It's not the group that crashes the game, but they have some strange property where these objects are unmoddable for some reason. I don't really understand it very well. Oh. Cat is outside complaining. He probably got his feet wet. He doesn't like being wet, that cat. He's a good cat, but he doesn't like being wet. So let's hit generate and see if we've put these rocks in here. Okay, good. So we've got rocks. There is a problem, though, and that is that the rocks are spawning. I do like this right here. This rock spawning right next to this mountain. That's a good thing. We want the rocks to do that. The problem is that the rocks are spawning in the corners as well, which we do not want. So we might need to introduce an additional placeholder to prevent that from happening. Study them a little bit more. Maybe we should leave this window a little bit more open and see what we can fill in there. But we definitely do not want the rocks to spawn in that corner. Not like that. And this is all mountain shelf terrain. We do want them to spawn kind of on this sloped area, which is also mountain shelf terrain. But we don't want them to spawn back here, because that is where we will be putting the stone. Okay. But we did succeed in our overall goal of getting the rocks to not completely block the path. I think I might actually remove the outermost one. Or we could, for now, have these rocks prioritize being close to the mountains so that they spawn there first. Because I think what's happening right now is the rocks are getting placed on the outside, and it's preventing other rocks from being spawned within here. But first things first, we should make it so that the rocks can't spawn in the corners. So let me just grab my hooded sweatshirt real quick. Throw this on. So we have these invisible placeholders that are along this shelf terrain, and what we need to do is we need to, or not shelf terrain, but transition terrain. If you may recall, they are on this DLC desert gravel. That's what these fish traps are. So we'll tell other placeholder objects to spawn. Actually, they don't even necessarily need to be placeholder objects. They could be the stone mines that we want. And we essentially place them on the shelf terrain, and then we tell these rocks to avoid those stone mines by a certain distance. That seems to be the most sensible application, the best approach to do it. But before we can put the stone mines in the corners, we'll have to put the relics in the corners. That's right, on this map, there is a relic in every corner. That is the way that Karga was developed. So we are going to have to implement that. And that'll be fun to do. So let's go back to our spreadsheet, and I'm just thinking here. I almost think that you always try to do the absolute placements first. You know, if you're going to directly specify where something is on the map, I believe that this program, or maybe even the game, I think the program runs it okay. The program isn't limited. It's the game that, depending on what order it's in, it needs to have it first, and the program doesn't prioritize doing that. So instead of updating the program to always order the absolutes first, I just said, oh, I'll just make a note to always do the absolutes first. And it is kind of a big deal when something is in an absolute location anyway. It should be done first so that the things that can change are able to change as needed. So we will try inserting them above. So we're going to insert rows above. We're going to redo all of these numbers. Might as well sort of say goodbye to all of these different colors, beautiful colors that I have in here. And we'll have 4 of these. Insert rows above. So this is a constant. This is not going to change depending on the map. So this is going to be row 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the first object for that is going to be a relic. Relic. No, I just want relic. Actually, you know what? Let's just copy this so that the formatting is consistent. Delete all of this. Relic. There we go. Finally get relic. Okay, so these relics cannot be player assigned and player owned. They must be neutral Gaia objects, and we can make them convertible because it is impossible to convert a relic. We are going to place exactly 1, so we don't need to put anything in there. We're not going to place them on a specific type of terrain, don't need to, because we're going to be specifying the exact locations of these relics. They don't need to be placed within or avoid anything. They don't need to override find closest, none of that. So group placement center, it's going to be 1 and 1, 1 and 100, 100, comma 1, and 100, comma 100. I'll try to center these so it looks nice. There we go. The group behavior, they're going to be inside, meaning that we are specifying objects to be inside of an actor area centered on these locations. And the radius is going to be 0. So we want them in exact locations. Yeah, have the monk go and negotiate with the relic. Scenario radius scale factor, none. Shoot. What's supposed to go there? Tell me we saved it from somewhere. Uh-oh. Well, this is supposed to be a drop-down menu item, but I don't see where it is, so we're just going to say no. We're just going to say no and hope that... Actually, we really could just leave it blank. The better option would be to figure out what we're supposed to be and then re-add that drop-down menu in, but we're just going to say no. So this is not going to scale that radius according to map size. So this is going to put relics in each of the corners of the map. And now we will copy this along. Actually, we can't even... We need to figure out a place to sneak the stone mines in. But I think I want them to avoid the mountains. Yeah, I think I'm going to have them avoid the flags too. So we'll delete that. Insert rows above. And we're going to say stone. And there's going to be no second object. Copy that. Make this convertible. Copy this. Paste that there. Mountain shelf. Temp min distance group placement. We're going to have them avoid each other by 4, but we're going to put 2 objects in each group, I think. Object quantity 2. I think that it would be a good improvement. They're going to be tightly grouped. These are going to be no and no. They're pretty much always no. I'm not really sure why I have these options. Actually, this one I added for some reason, but I don't fully remember what it does right now. I have a vague idea. I'd have to think about it. So now we're going to save that. And finally, we're going to have these objects avoid well, if these objects are being placed on the shelf and the stone is being placed on the shelf, stone, actually no, we did want the stone to avoid the mountains, didn't we? So we're going to have the stone avoid the mountains by 3 or something. So let's see. Yeah, let's copy that, paste that there. So 22, we're just going to slide this down. So the stone avoids the mountains. We'll have it avoid all of the mountains by 3. Here we go. Scaling 1, that's fine. So now these objects need to avoid the stone as well. 26, 27, 28, and 29. So that's A33. And the first 3 are going to be zeros. And the last one, we're going to have them avoid the stone by, say, 3. Although the stone has a temp min distance group placement of 4. So we might have to have them avoid the stone by more. Stone avoid by 5. Okay. Let's see how we did with this. So we'll run it, and we'll see if we get the relics. We'll see if we get the stone. We'll see what the impact that will be on our ridge eye candy objects. Oh no! Something is not done right. Min-max blank filler. Well, let's see. Probably something isn't fitting appropriately. Let's take a look at the script and see. We've still got the objects in there. What did we change? Well, we added these relics. That's the first thing we changed. Tell you what, let's suppress everything else and just try to spawn the relics and see if that works. Because I haven't really tested it very much since I updated it on the absolute object spawns. But this could be the problem right here. Let's see. Are we able at a minimum to get the relics to work? Because if we can, then that means that the problem is somewhere else. If defs is undefined, well, that is something that we can solve. Let's see, 891. And 67. Yeah, sheet scribe, 124. Garner definitions. Okay, and now we'll go to 891, where we're garnering definitions. Okay, so this is basically saying, oh, you didn't actually generate any definitions. So we will initialize defs as nothing. Okay. And let's see if that does it. So this has just started out with an empty list, and it can always add to it if it doesn't have any, because we don't have any definitions. We didn't define anything. Relics are predefined, and we're only generating these 4 things. The program should work in all cases, so we'll add that, and that should make it work in this case. All right, so this looks very similar to the error that it threw before. We have defs defined, but the issue is with the relics. Subscript must be real. Did you forget to initialize I or J? So let's take a look at this. 868. Ah. Indeed. Yeah, we got a little eye hanging out here. Look at that. So we need to specify that as 1. So, because we're not importing a value of I, so it's like, okay, you must mean an imaginary number. So this is basically checking the left-hand box, this is checking the right-hand box, and if either of the boxes is empty, then it assumes that the other box was meant to be the same thing. So I'm not sure how we got so far with that error there, but whatever. Let's run it again. Here we go. Structure has no member GYX. Scenario actor areas. Yep. So scenario actor areas are previously unused, really. We haven't used them much. 844. Line 844 here. GYX. Structure has no member, no such member, so it's not getting initialized when it's imported. Actor areas 755. Uh-oh, I might have to end the stream and figure this out. Objects.gcx. Oh man. So it does both of these. So if number 2 is empty, and for x and y, which is the case, if we look at our spreadsheet, you can see that we put the numbers in just the first boxes. Scroll out here. You can see that we use the first boxes, but not the second boxes. So it needs to be smart enough to know that if we only put one number in the first box, that we mean both boxes have that number. So if it seems to find it too, it identifies correctly that both are empty, GCX and GCY. Oh, GYX. It should be GCX. That is a typo. Okay, all right. 844, let's go find it. Yes, so G, CX, CX. This needs to be CY, and this needs to be CY, but instead it was named something different for some stupid reason, probably just a typo. All right, well, it's good we're finding this stuff. See, this is why I didn't upload this to the public tools portion, is because it wasn't tested. Okay, let's try running it again. All right, well, we're making progress. It's a different error message. X must be an array of cell array or cell array of strings. It's unique. Well, we're not going to troubleshoot that function. That's a built-in function. Line 777, column 17. ID, unique, inner. Two to four. Well, let's see what it actually is. we'll keep everything the same, and we'll just paste this here, and we'll see what it's trying to sort uniquely. And it will tell us right before it throws the error. So it's really having a problem with the fourth one. It looks like AAI doesn't have a fourth column. I mean, but what? That can't be right. So the first column, second column, third column. Where's the fourth column? Where is the fourth column? Oh, sorry guys. We didn't realize that we had these problems for the scenario actor area portions of the object describer. I thought it was sorted out, but I did recently update it. And I don't do scenario, I don't want to say recently actually, but I don't do these scenario objects very often, and so I haven't used this portion of it. I did not realize it wasn't functioning right. So AAI 4. So these are the actor area matrices. I don't. Must be an array or cell array of strings. Ah. I think that the scenario actor area thing is returning crap. I think that's the problem. It's basically, it has to run this function. It's returning an AAI. That AAI is crap, and then therefore this fails. So we have to figure out why is the scenario actor area function, and by we I mean I. You don't have to figure anything out. I figure out why my scenario actor area function is not working properly. Ugh. Alright, well, I'm not going to do it right now. Sorry about that, guys. But this is good stuff. Me finding this is good. It's okay, fine. It's a little embarrassing, but stuff like this is inevitable whenever you overhaul your software. Always complain about like the bugs in the game, the pathfinding whenever the devs release a patch, but this is the kind of stuff they go through. It's probably, on the one hand, it's more, I think that what they do is definitely way more complicated. It's a huge system. There's way more variables. So, but this is maybe more mathematically intensive in some respects. But probably what they have is more complicated. But they also have the resources of an entire company behind them. And I'm just one person. So I will go and troubleshoot this off stream. I was hoping it would be an easy fix like the variable misnamer, but it looks like there's something going on here, and I don't want this to be a debugging stream. I want this to be a map making stream. So we will come back after this is debugged, and we'll continue with the mountains. we'll have some good, we got some good progress, I think, on it. We got these mountains positioned properly. We got the spreadsheet set up. We got a bunch of nice things added, so we'll continue to chip away at it. I really want to try to get this map ready for Alchemy League, if possible, to be able to play on Alchemy League. All right, so with that being said, thank you everybody for joining. A little bit of a shorter stream today, shorter than I was expecting, but we'll troubleshoot that and we'll get that program running again, and we'll continue with this awesome mountain and ridge generation. So we'll catch you guys later.